I think for families, friends and carers, so it's really important to acknowledge when somebody's having a bad day. Not necessarily, I don't mean pointing out the difficulties that they're having, but the emotional experience that they're having. And we call that validating it. So telling the person that you understand, so empathizing, telling the person you understand how they are feeling, which means, being really brave and putting yourself in a, not in that person's shoes, as in you might not have had that exact experience, but a similar experience where you might have felt something similar, and just saying to the person, I can see that you're worried or you're anxious or you're angry, which is quite a brave thing to state, I think. But often it's just such a relief that the person is being shown that other people do understand that what they are feeling is valid and that it's not being swept under the rug, that it does matter and it is really important.
If people are describing themselves as having a bad day, is to acknowledge that and provide as much support, reassurance, guidance as one can. So I have a parent who is currently being assessed for possible dementia. I think it quite likely, and they certainly have got cognitive impairments, and they have bad days when they're struggling to do things. I try and speak to them every day, and sometimes they sort of externalize their bad days, so it's all about something that's going wrong. They still use computer, and they will constantly blame the computer or BT for the problems they're experiencing, and that might be true, but I think it's also a case that their impairment is resulting in them struggling more to use a computer, and that can be a really bad day for them. So it's kind of acknowledging that. It's just sometimes going along with their reasons or explanations for why they're having a bad day. It's about going along with the fact they're feeling upset, and providing that reassurance.
And I suppose that's what we need to balance in ourselves, isn't it? Is to have a positive outlook and to have hope and work on all these amazing projects and all the things that we know are actually possible, and gaining some of our enthusiasm from all the hope that can generate and create. And yet not to be completely carried away by that and forgetting about the true awfulness of it.
So I think one of the great things about Ideal, it's reconfirmed evidence that existed before about how psychological well-being, mental health, mental well-being, whatever phrases you choose to use, are actually better indicators of quality of life than the progress of someone's dementia. And obviously dementia can be very distressing, but actually what's really distressing is poor mental health or poor psychological well-being. And I think therefore if one responds on the basis that, let's think about what's going to improve your mental health, how you're feeling today, can't really fix the cognitive impairment. Let's talk about how you're feeling and acknowledge how you're feeling, you're having a bad day. And if there are useful things that you can do that can help raise your mood, make you feel better, distract you, let's try and do those things. If they're tried and tested or they're things you like, there might be quite quirky things specific to the individual, or more generic things. My parents, they go for a walk on a daily basis, which really helps them. The walk often means they bump into someone who they'll have a chat to. Over the summer, I encourage them to go down to a local cricket field where they go and sit and watch cricket, and that would usually mean they would then have a conversation with someone else. So that lots of good things happen there as a result of doing that in terms of social engagement, conversation, activity. But all the other things that can help people feel a bit better. So it's obviously knowing the person, acknowledging they may be having a bad day, talking with them, and either asking them, reminding them, suggesting to them, well, going for that walk yesterday seems to really help. Why don't you go for a walk?
I guess that as a psychologist and psychotherapist, I think there is something to be said for a form of supportive psychological psychotherapy that helpfully and gently supports people in exploring the true awfulness sides in a safe kind of environment, and in a way that uses enough of all the things that we know about the hopeful sides in order to, make that bearable and to return to something that that helps you stay on the constructive and positive side of it.
And then, when people are having good days, just want to hear about their good days, really. If you're my parents, you're a relative, you're a friend, the dementia is irrelevant. Let's hear about what you've done on your good day, because the fact you've got dementia is significant in your life, but shouldn't be significant in terms of you sharing your good day and I'll share mine, even though I don't have dementia.
Of course, it's useful to have engaged with the real downsides of it and to be able to think about those and have talked them through and have somewhere in the back of our minds a way of knowing that we know what that is, and we do know about the downsides, and yet we manage to continue and we can hold that there without it being all pervasive and invading the rest of our lives, and that in itself is something healthy that puts us in good stead for more difficult times.
I do think it's helpful to recognise those up days and those down days, and that there is that kind of fluctuation, but there are good days too. And for some people, I think it can be helpful, for example, to keep a diary. So that they can look back on the good days and recognise that there are bad days in between, but good days come again. Not everybody's a diary keeper, and there's different ways of keeping a diary. It doesn't have to be through writing. It could be as simple as smiley faces and grumpy faces in that diary. You don't have to go into a lot of detail. It's just that sense of seeing that fluctuation over time rather than thinking it's all gloom and doom and downhill.
Of course, it'd be great to have a cure or a wider range of effective treatments for dementia. But in the meantime, there's lots of things that can really help around how you're feeling, your well-being, your mental health, and changing the conversation a bit to focus more on that, I think potentially is a real game changer. That's why IDEAL is so important. Not because I think research into cures and treatments isn't important, but it provides potential solutions in the here and now that people with dementia, family carers and practitioners can put into practice.